He says, in that assumption, you've left yourself wide open to this person who normally probably couldn't attack you. And then what you do, you give so much allowance to those individuals. They breach your sovereignty continually, but because you're in auto-hypnosis, you're constantly forgiving them, you're constantly violating your own intuition, you're constantly letting them get away with murder. When, in fact, by the third time they violated you, you should have already been sharp and go, wait a minute, there's something fundamentally wrong here. But you see, we constantly then excuse because we are in a state of violating our own inner garden, our own inner temple. And then you can't. Why do you then blame the person for bringing their muddy boot prints into your mansion? It's your fault. Yeah. Everything precious has a guard around it. You don't go into museums and just see Ming vases, just set down there in front of everybody. Right? They got guards, they got ropes. Everything is cordoned off so that you can't just go and stick your fingers on it. Well, the person is the most sacred thing that's walking the planet, but he acts in the most unsacred of ways.
Yeah, destroying the
temple.
temple.
And the cities in which people live, is exactly an extension of that Merkaba. It's an extension of the of this ego-based regularity, because everyone's so damn insecure inside their own consciousness that they require even the houses in which they live and the streets in which they go and the blocks and everything to be regular. What does that tell you about the psychopathology of people? That they can't even live in an organic, natural way like the tribal ways that they have before, you see. Mm-hmm. It's horrendous. Well, and then from the water and the food,
yeah,
and the media, this is highly inauthentic ways of living.
Yeah. It's like such a dual-edged sword, because it's such an interesting time to be alive, and yet at the same time, it's sometimes such a sad time to be alive. Right.
So this is testing our mettle. You see, the adversarial energy is probably stronger now. And remember, the adversarial energy has been strong always.
Yeah.
But it shifts. It doesn't remain the same. Before, hundreds of years ago or not too long ago, the adversarial energy was literally a physicalized thing in which it prevented you from even moving 10 miles from your village. It was very, very, very physicalized. You were a serf, and even if you wanted to marry somebody, you had to go in front of the Lord, get down on your knees, and beg that person to allow you the privilege of marrying. Mm-hmm. It was crown or it was gown. It was autocracy or it was, theology, whatever you want to call it, monarchy, and the religion. Very punitive. Okay, so that kind of changes or lightens up, but we have other forms of dictatorship, other forms of control. And the controllers have always preferred that we control or police or monitor ourselves, because they actually prefer not to do it.
Oh, for sure. They don't have to get their hands dirty.
That's right. And also there's a lot of people in the world, so it's better if they embody Big Brother. Mm-hmm. And in America, that's what you're finding, is that people are so voyeuristic, people are monitoring each other, people are so intractable. They want 3 forms of identification just to rent a video.
God.
The whole feeling of camaraderie. I mean, everyone uses the word community. It makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
That people are so duplicitous to be throwing around the word like community, and the thing doesn't even exist. Beautiful private businesses are put out of business.
Oh, for the
in
big
place
ones.
of huge, meaningless, empty franchises.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that's community? Benches are taken out of parks. There's 101 signs saying, don't do this, thou shalt not, don't sit here, don't move there, don't park here.
Yeah, don't step on the grass.
Everywhere you go.
Don't step on the grass.
Yeah, and yet they're telling us that we have community. Homeless people are walking the streets with nobody caring for them. What on earth are they talking about? Crime is rampant everywhere. You can tell me that you now have a healthy sense of community with all this pernicious stuff going on. I mean, what kind of mind control are people under? So the city is not going to work, because the city was never meant to work. The city is a violation of nature.
Well,
so accept it and move on.
Yeah.
Let people create new types of communities. Human beings are capable of doing the most remarkable things. So when you see things decaying, don't always think that that's a negative thing. Don't always interpret that negatively. So when, like you said earlier, that you see, it's a fine line between wanting to be alive, but seeing all of this adversity, it can help people a lot. Instead of seeing it as adversity, see it as the decline of something that never should have been in the first place. I've said this a lot, and I've got so much flack for saying it, that if a thing is being destroyed, it probably shouldn't have been in existence in the first place. People refuse to understand the philosophy behind that.
Otherwise, it wouldn't be destroyed.
That's right. So if it can be destroyed or broken, it probably should be. It's a different kind of Zen thinking, though, which the West is unfortunately not familiar with.
Yeah.
They can observe that particular kind of understanding. It takes a certain kind of mentality to understand this, that the thing that you're clinging to, the thing that you've been pouring your energy into, the thing that you may be voting into existence, shouldn't have existed from day one. So now, if it's coming to the end of its life cycle, hey, let it go. You'll be better off for it. But this kind of detachment, this kind of catharsis, this kind of divestiture, and this kind of letting go is highly, irregular to these acquisitive, grabbing, greedy, materialistic, narcissistic culture that we find ourselves in today. And this is where the problems arise.
Yeah. Well, aren't cities really the last place that a civilization ends before it implodes?
Yeah. And my work goes into that a lot, about that there is civilizations, in fact, do not continue. You may think going down to the mall and it's going to be there forever and it's just so wonderful to drive in your SUV. Well, I got news for you. That's what the Romans thought, and the Greeks, and the Israelites, and that's what the Egyptians thought, and that's what the high cultures of India thought. There's been plenty of civilizations that have thought that way. The Maya say that they saw 4 creations come and go, not civilizations. 4 creations come and go. So, there's nothing permanent about civilization. What's permanent is virtue and truth.
Yes.
But humanity may come and go. So, the powers of deconstruction, they're pretty ruthless when they have to come in to deal with toxic situations. People might be very shocked about how ruthless those storms can be. So people have to have their own act very much, together in order to withstand this. And it just means that people can stay in the roles, but at least you got to know that they're roles. You've got to discern between the role and yourself. Nobody's telling anyone to stop, living in playing the roles of mother, father, brother, sister, lover, boss, whatever. All of that can go on, but people need to separate and realize, okay, those are roles that I play, but there's the real me.
Yeah, that doesn't...
And I prefer to have friends that deal with the real me and not with the roles, and I prefer also to deal with people also as individuals.
Exactly.
And try to recultivate this human-to-human connection as opposed to the role-to-the-role connection. Because there's nothing but pain and suffering and slavery involved in those roles.
Well,
they're inauthentic. They don't matter.
Exactly. It's illusion.
Children can be wiser than their parents, but the parent is thinking, oh, no, I'm the boss. I'm the smart ass.
It's the kids teaching them.
The teachers can be stupider than the pupils.
Well,
politicians can be more immoral and corrupt, than the people who are voting them in. So, the role means nothing.
Yeah.
It has no spiritual value or currency whatsoever. It's utterly fictitious. It's just like performing poodles. There's no meaning whatsoever.
Yeah.
None of these people, are arranged in a hierarchy. The ancient civilizations and many even of the third world cultures before they were completely destroyed and decimated lived in a hierarchic situation, not a hierarchy, a hierarchy. Everything was based on the sphere. Everything was based on wholeness, from the tribal level onwards to the whole relationship to nature, the way everything was arranged. But down through the centuries, the shamanic masters have all been removed purposely, because those were the doctors of society. They were the healers, and they were the detoxers, and they were the people who kept out the parasites. They were able to notice the parasitical energy. Again, just very much like Professor Tolkien's movie has been, his book was made into a movie. People check out that movie. You can see a very good example of how ancient societies worked, in which you had the shaman, and that the shamans eventually got corrupted. The wizards got corrupted, and this caused enormous upset in society. But at one point, they were connected to the knowledge of nature and could assist and monitor and help civilization in a very, very beautiful and natural, organic way. Not as teachers, telling you anything or lecturing you, but helping you to learn yourself, helping to bring the teaching out from the human heart and the human mind.
Yeah, coming to that understanding within.
Yeah, coming to the within, not didactically, which is the way we're forced to do it now, basically imprisoned in these schools for 18 years. I mean, just think about it. Yeah. Over here, you even had to, in Europe, you had to wear a uniform. And you look at the word uniform. They're teaching you to be individuals, and then the very term uniform. I mean, what kind of nonsense? The thing is so hypocritical and double-speak oriented. How can you then develop children who have free thought? Not to mention the fact that in Europe here, the schools that I went to, they were also very violent. They were physically abusive. literally, beat the hell out of you for the slightest infraction,
Yeah, we had that too when I grew up and went to school. We had the strap, and the teachers that threw the balls at your head and whacked you into lockers and.
Oh yeah, full out violence, full out assaulting on your person, whether or not your parents allowed it or not. They were going to do it anyway, which is again the whole point of sadism. You have sadistic people who are sadistic to themselves, then they're going to naturally perform sadistically.
Like you mentioned before, they've lost their humanness. And they're no longer human. And that was one thing too that I saw on one of your videos last night too. And you're the only other person other than myself that's really picked up on this that I know of personally. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't talked to them specifically. But in reading of Frank Herbert's Dune, I remember when I was a teenager, and there was a little saying in his books that I carried with me from the moment I read them. And you're going to know exactly what it is, and it is fear is the mind killer.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that people who read those books didn't come out with that one, because it is so blatantly obvious and so apropos, for today and for any time. But fear is the mind killer.
Yeah, and people don't notice it or its effects, because, again, they've been moved so far away from the center, that they're so far removed from their own authentic voice, that they're basically mutilated. They're emotionally mutilated, and they're on the periphery of being in a very, very precarious place. And therefore, there's a lot to be fearful about. The person who's estranged from their own inner tabernacle, Jesus, they're going to be the recipient of every kind of pathogenic entity or force that plagues the human mind, because they're in a shattered, fragmented, and broken state. And in that state, there's going to be a lot of anxiety, because remember, anxiety and fear are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's not fear that is the mind killer; it's anxiety, because fear is usually, to be technical about it, fear is a emotion that arises when there's a legitimate threat, like somebody's breaking into your house, you see, or breaking into your car, or somebody's going to try and mug you in the streets or whatever.
Yeah, there is
you're going to be attacked.
There is a healthy component to it.
Yeah,